Elle.
Hi, Abigail. What are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to talk about screen time and how screen time is often scream time in so many of our households.
It surely is in this house. Hi, I'm Elle Kwan in Hong Kong. I'm your host of the Hand in Hand Parenting podcast. We're a non-profit based in San Francisco and operating globally. Join us here every week as we decode children's difficult behaviors, one parenting challenge at a time.
And I'm Abigail Wald, founder of realtimeparenting.com, and I'm a certified hand-in-hand parenting instructor. And together, Elle and I are going to bring you real stories from real families every week, sometimes our own, sometimes yours. And we're going to take a look at how people are handling them. What are some traditional methods for handling these situations? And also, what are some hand-in-hand parenting thoughts on the issue? So today, we're going to be looking at screen time.
Screen time, isn't it such a confusing issue? I feel like I never know which way to go. We're told so many different conflicting pieces of advice. And I don't know whether it's, you hear about tech people who are vigilantly keeping their kids away from screen time, and then your kids go to school and they're doing all they can to incorporate screen time into school, and then they come home and they're begging for screen time, and it's like, I don't know, where does it stop?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? And I love this idea that Steve Jobs doesn't let his kids play except for a little tiny bit on the weekend. It's like, what does he know that we don't know?
Yeah, exactly.
And
he knows it's addictive.
Yeah. And to be fair, I think some kids are more susceptible to it being addictive for them than others. But I think for all children, the reality is screens are not people. And, they're not responsive, right? It's kind of a one-way street. There's a little bit of that sort of fake responsiveness of you jumped a fish, so you got 50 gold coins, right? But it's not the same kind of responsiveness that you have in a real live relationship, that back and forth, that ebb and flow of a relationship. And, I think one of the things of how do you know, how can you see that a child might be getting, what we at Hand in Hand Parenting sort of look at as kind of disconnected, right?
Right.
So that kind of addictive behavior of begging or getting really rigid around it.
Whiny.
Whining for it, needing it, can't live without it, getting really bossy around it, demanding. Those are all signs of kind of a child who's feeling what we would say is, a disconnection, signs of disconnection, right? And this doesn't mean they're completely not connected to us. Of course, we still have these warm relationships with our kids, but there are moments in the day, not anybody's fault, right? It's impossible for a parent and child to constantly stay connected. But when we're using screen time as a babysitter for our kids, or we're not around, it's really easy for that disconnection to really kind of ramp up, and it's so interesting, right? I mean, there's been studies about especially in video games, right? The dopamine release of you're constantly attaining levels, and that's very exciting for the brain. And, I love this. My 10-year-old actually gave this beautiful, he looked up the other day and he was playing a video game and he stopped and he was kind of looking a little glum, that glum look they get when it's over, right? And he looked up and he said to me, "Mom, you know what's wrong with video games?" And I was like, "What, honey?" And by the way, this is from a boy who loves video games. And he said, it's like you're living life and life is great, right? And then you play a video game and it's so exciting. And then all of a sudden you're back in regular life, and now regular life kind of sucks because it's so boring in comparison.
Oh, bless him. That is such a good way to sum it up, though.
It was brilliant. He's actually talking about the dopamine release in his brain without
totally true.
It.
And totally the feeling I get after I binge watch through Netflix or something.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and then it just disappears.
So what can we do to kind of counter those feelings? Are there ways that we can kind of, I don't know, lessen them or get through them? Or is this just what happens with screens?
No, I think, one of the things that I discovered really helped was, when a child is doing screen time and it's kind of time to end, right? Instead of just sort of standing there and being ready to yank it out or yell at them because they can't end on time or all of that, to really understand how encompassing and exciting it is, right? But then to move in before it's done and to spend like the last few minutes either watching a movie with them or watching a show, or if they're playing a video game, like kind of pay attention, right? In a friendly kind of way, like joining in, excited for them, not like patrol, I'm about to take it away, right?
Right. So join them in their fun, basically.
Yes, like enjoy it with them, you know?
So that kind of reestablishes that connection.
Yeah, it's almost like a DJ fade, right? Where you're like kind of fading down the screen time and fading yourself back into their life, and it helps that transition a lot. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. The other thing is, we hear a lot from our parents who are doing special time, is that because kids are so drawn to screens and because it's so often off limits, that's what they're asking to do when you give them time to choose and say that you'll do it with them. So does that work as well in special time? Should we feel like we're failing them by letting them do screen time as special time?
It's such a good question. And I think every parent has to decide, right? And it depends on your relationships to screen. And, if you've really been like limiting it, it's been a huge problem in your family, then yeah, it actually could be nice to let them do it for special time, right? To kind of break that taboo and break the energy around it a little bit. But then again, if you feel like a child really needs to connect with you and they're not letting you in ever, then you might say, actually, we're going to set a little bit of a limit around it. And so maybe you say, we'll do it for, 3 of the 4 special times this week, or maybe 1 of the 4 special times this week, or, maybe you do it for a whole week and you say, but next week, we'll do something different. Everybody can figure out their own sort of limit and figure that out, right? But screen time actually can make for some really sweet special times,
Yeah, I remember seeing a story on the blog where a mum, she really wasn't too keen on what her kid was doing on the screen, but the way she kind of found her enjoyment and made it into a special time was she focused on him and his enjoyment of what he was doing, and just kind of
sweet.
Fed from that. Yeah, and that seemed like a nice solution, especially those times when you're listening to, or watching the umpteenth time you've had like a Lego unboxing or something like that.
Right.
Which does happen in our house.
Right? Yes. I had, my youngest son used to literally watch like cucumber vines, like unfurling and then like wrapping around things. It was actually kind of fascinating. Like I loved it. He was obsessed with like roses opening. It was
oh my
really
God,
amazing.
What, those QuickTime videos?
Yes,
where they come,
yes,
oh.
or like, watermelons rotting at like 0.09 seconds,
It's amazing what they can find. It's true.
I actually had a super sweet special time with my oldest son recently where he actually wanted to do this amazing architectural program called SketchUp. And it was really beautiful. He was like building a house, it was like really amazing time. And then he showed me his like favorite music videos, which I was pleased to see were not too raunchy. And, it was great. It was actually like really sweet.
So would you say there's, a cutoff, too much time to, what should you be allowing?
Again, right? I mean, it depends on the family, right? I mean, I think, what's your choice there? Like,
I don't know. I've had quite a hard time with screen times. I think because as a kid, I grew up feeling like our TV was on all the time and it was a constant draw away from my, it constantly took my attention. And I felt in retrospect as an adult that I'd wasted so much time in front of the TV that it made me really conscious of not having it on too much. But I mean, that was then and this is now. That was TVs and now it's iPads and things like that. And we do have them. And my kids tend to ask for different things. I've got an older girl. She seems far less reliant on screens, but does enjoy things like Minecraft, things like that. And then my son seems absolutely, hell-bent on that there must be some screen time every day. So we do have that, as, you mentioned there, like the joint screen time. We do have a bit of that after school. And that seems to be, I pick him up, we have a chat, we have a snack, and then he does have about half an hour of screen time after that. But it took a lot of work for me to kind of get comfortable with that, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think every family is totally different. And like you said, it's about being responsive to the kid you have, to the place emotionally where that child currently is, and also to yourself. So like for those of us who've been doing hand in hand for a long time, if you've got a listening partnership, then this is a great thing to bring up in LP time, is to say, like, ask your questions, right? About
what does it bring up for you? What was it like in your childhood? What is it that triggers you when you feel tense about screen time? Or it doesn't have to be iPads, phone use, when your kid wants a mobile phone, how should you decide? It brings up quite a wealth of feelings that you can use to kind of make your decisions.
It does. And legitimately, look, sometimes you actually have to set limits,
Right.
For us in our household, we actually created a rule where there's no screen time during the week and there's only screen time on the weekends, right? And so now they have 45 minutes each.
All right.
Each day.
My kids are spoiled compared to yours then.
No, there's no spoiling. It's all good. No such thing. Unless they're a watermelon and they're actually rotting in 0.09 seconds. It's so interesting, right? Because at this time of the story I'm actually going to tell you that I just remembered, my kids were probably, I don't know, my oldest son was about 8, maybe. Maybe 7 or 8, I think 8. And so they were at that point getting half an hour each on the weekends. So half an hour on Saturday and half an hour on Sunday.
Right.
And I love this because there was this one day he said to me, he finished his Saturday time, right? And then he's in that place where he's like, like totally craving his next fix, right? And I'm like,
I'm badgering you about it, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And so he comes up with this brilliant idea, right? Of like, Mom, listen, I'm going to do my Sunday time now.
Oh, nice.
And I'm
they can be so genius sometimes.
Right? And I'm like, wow. And I'm questioning myself, right? Like, am I willing to let him learn this lesson? Because, of course, I full well know he's going to do it and come tomorrow, he's going to have a fit. Like, I just know this, right? And so I question myself and I'm like, okay, can I handle the fit tomorrow? What does our day look like tomorrow? Am I emotionally in a place where I can handle it? I think so. I'm going to be willing to let him make this what I'm pretty sure is a mistake, right? And so I'm like, okay, babe. And I'm like, you realize tomorrow that's going to mean you're not going to have it. Like, are you sure you're okay with that? I have some concerns, but okay. No, it's going to be fine, right? So he does it. He's totally happy. All day Saturday is great. Sunday morning he wakes up and he can like barely get out of bed. Like he knows, right?
It is a day without screens stretching before him.
And of course his brother had not made that choice. His brother's like doing
even more painful.
Yeah. And he is dying. He is dying. I mean, really, it was actually like sad. Like he was like writhing on the floor, screaming as if I was like not offering him food. I mean, it was horrible. And it went on, I'm not going to lie, Elle, it actually went on for hours.
Oh,
and
bless him.
Yeah, it was awful. And I was like, kind of like, I knew what was coming. So I had steeled myself, not in a way of being like hard, my heart was open, but I was like, I was prepared. I knew what I was going into. And so I just kept saying to him, my love, I get it. This feels so hard, And every once in a while, my husband and I would like meet in the kitchen and we were like, oh my God, I can't take it, right? And at one point, my husband was like, just give it to him. I can't do it anymore.
Right,
He's ruining our Sunday.
He's wearing you down. He's wearing you down.
Totally. And I was like, no, we are staying the course. This is a limit. I'm sticking to it, right? And I would just keep coming to him and being like, hi, babe. Yeah. And I was like totally holding the limit with love and like warmth, and when I needed to like offload, my husband and I would meet in the kitchen. We would just kind of like,
a little venting session. Right?
Yes. So finally, I don't know, hours in, I'm go to him again. I'm like rubbing his forehead. I walk away. I mean, it's like he's ill. You know what I mean? And I walk away and I hear he's on the floor and he goes, I hate. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to say he hates me, right? That I'm sure that's what's coming. And I'm getting so frustrated. I can feel myself like starting to boil over, right? And he says, I hate my choice.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my God, that's the best thing that ever happened, right? Like my
lesson
whole
learned.
body
Bless
was just
him.
like, oh yes, yes, right?
You're like,
and
parenting goals.
yeah, totally. I was doing like one of those like football end dances, right? So I was like so excited. And you know what? Ever since then, he totally knows how to budget his time. He totally knows sometimes he'll still ask to move it around. And I'm like, if that works for you. And I never hear anything. And he's learned to handle his boredom. You know, I mean, it's like, it was a really amazing limit to hold.
Just
So
giving him
actually,
the freedom to feel that pain a little bit, and then holding out that limit for him really worked.
Yeah. And because he cared so much about it, it was, you know, a great setup for this amazing lesson. So it was actually great.
Great story. Well, you know what, though? There's other reasons, I guess, why we need to set limits apart from these emotional ties that we have or they have. You know, the internet can be a dangerous place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was actually just looking up statistics, right, as I knew we were doing this episode. I found 42% of kids have viewed internet porn already between the ages of 10 and 17, right? And 60% of those kids reported seeing it for the first time at home.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, you only have to step away for a second and it's right there, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're there with their friends and, you know, stuff happens, right?
Wow, 60% is not a small number. When you think that, you know, you're at home and you're kind of safeguarding, it just goes to show, make sure you have those, whatever you decide, make sure that you've got those parental guides or whatever set up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
and to really
complicated,
stay
isn't
present.
it?
To really stay present. Yes, for so many reasons.
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess that hand in hand, the view is, you know, it's really up to you to find what works for you in your family, but to keep the connection strong. So be there with them in that screen time.
Yeah, as much as possible. And, you know, when you're going to use it as a babysitter, it's fine to make that choice, but just notice you're probably going to have a slightly more disconnected kid at the end that you might then have to do some special time with, or just to sort of monitor that, to think about it in those terms too, right?
I think we covered a lot there, right?
Yeah, tell us what you guys think, right?
Yeah.
What are your rules at home? Has this made you rethink them, or you know, maybe you felt great about them, or you know, we're certainly open to having this conversation. This is something that we're really learning about as well, because we're parents too, just like you.
Yeah,
figuring
absolutely.
all this out.
I'm all ears open. I have to say, there's always something new to learn, isn't there?
Yeah, figuring it out day by day together. So if you are enjoying our podcast, please remember to subscribe and leave us a review and a rating.
Yes, please. We would love to hear from you. So if you've been inspired by this episode, or you would like more information on how Hand in Hand sees screen times, we are putting a free audio series on setting limits for you. You can get it at handinhandparenting.org/podcast. Just click on this episode and you'll see everything there in the show notes. And if you want to get in touch with the wonderful Abigail, contact her at realtimeparenting.com. And we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. See you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
Subscribe, rate, and review.
And review.